Hi class, I want to do a second example for a simple Punnett square. It's a little more complicated than the first one. And so the way usually we state the problem is we can give you the genotype of the parents. Okay, so something you need to know is the term genotype. And if you know the parental genotypes, typically we call this the P generation or the P1 generation. So the P generation simply means the parental genotype. So I'm going to just, 1 second, just here, P generation, okay, here we go. So if you know the genotype of the P generation, we can say that they're both heterozygous for a trait. And if they're both heterozygous for a trait, we can just pick a trait. I'm saying we're just going to pick hair, something easy and visible. And this is, again, just an example, so we're just pretending that what controls, for example, hair waviness is a gene known as R. So if you're heterozygous for the gene R, then both parents happen to be R and lowercase r, R and lowercase r. Okay? And that states that each one of these parents has one dominant. Okay, that is the dominant allele, and that is the recessive allele. Okay, the lowercase will be the recessive allele. Now, we don't know anything else about the trait, but if we don't know anything else about the trait, and I don't tell you anything else about the trait, we can assume that the expression pattern for this trait and the inheritance pattern for this trait is complete dominance. Alright, so the question would be, usually, what are the genotype and phenotype ratios of the offspring? So, describe the genotypic and phenotypic ratios or probabilities, right? So if I say ratios, I want it sort of expressed in fractions, but those fractions can easily be converted into percentages, which is what you get probabilities from, of the offspring. Now the offspring is known as the F1 generation, or the first filial generation, which means the first set of children from these parents. F2 would be the children of the children. Okay, and typically this terminology is used sort of to describe large litters of animals that are just going to mate with each other. And so for us, typically we need to know something about the spouses if we're talking about the second generation, beyond the offspring of the parents. Okay, so that's the typical question that I might ask. Describe the genotypic and phenotypic ratios of the offspring. Okay, so you know two things. You know the genotype of the parents, and you know that the inheritance pattern is complete dominance. Okay, so now we build our Punnett square, and the Punnett square simply is, as it stated, is a square which is just a table, and in that table we're going to populate the each allele of each parent on either side of the Punnett square. So one on the left we're going to put, assume that's dad, and then we're going to put on the top, we're going to put this one, assuming that's mom. Okay? Now the next job is easy, it's just to populate the Punnett square with the letters that represent each of the alleles in combination. Okay, so I'm going to just do, just because I have the color here, for ease of writing in the app, I'm going to do the blue ones first, and then the red ones. Okay, so these are all the red ones. Okay, there it is. Okay, so now I completed my Punnett square. The question is asking, what is the genotype and the phenotypic ratios of the offspring generation? So this is the offspring generation. This is F1. Okay, it's every offspring in the Punnett square. Now, what the Punnett square tells you is there is a possibility that any one out of 4 of these offspring is going to have a specific genotype and a specific phenotype. So in terms of genotype, okay, 1 out of 4 is going to be homozygous dominant. 1 out of 4 is going to be homozygous recessive, and 2 out of 4, or 1/2, are going to be heterozygous. Okay, that's the genotypic ratios. Okay, if you want to make it into probabilities, you just turn these into percentages. Okay, Now, what about the phenotypic ratios? The phenotypic ratios, because these are complete dominant, okay, means that 3 out of the 4 are going to be show the dominant trait. So 3 out of the 4 are going to be dominant, okay, whatever that happens to be, and 1/4 is going to be recessive. So I think I mentioned that this trait was going to be something visual, and maybe hair waviness is the easy one. So maybe R stands for curly, and little r, lowercase r, stands for straight. Okay, so typically the case is that wavy hair is dominant over straight hair, and therefore the physical manifestation, right, the phenotype of the offspring, which is at the bottom right over here, is going to be 3/4 are going to be curly, and then 1/4 is going to be straight. Okay, that's typically how we would ask a question about the what you can calculate from the knowledge of the parental generation, the genotype of the parents, as well as the inheritance pattern, the gene expression pattern for this particular trait. All right. Hopefully, if you have any questions, please let me know, and I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.